What could possibly cure them really depressing holiday blues? I know, talking about Middlesbrough Football Club, said no one ever. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm back after a fantastic holiday away, and I thought instead of previewing the Bristol City game, which we weren't going to do anyway, or get too much into the Watford defeat, which I know definitely don't want to do, I thought now would be a good time to take stock on where Boro are at this season. We're almost at the 10-game mark now, where you can sort of start to see the league take shape. You can really start to take the league table a little bit more seriously. And although we're still one game off of that, we've had 2 blocks of fixtures before 2 international breaks already, and we've got 1 coming up. So I thought today we would look at where Boro are at. We'd look at each block between the international breaks that we've had thus far, before making a judgment, and then looking ahead to the games we've got to come, which are difficult. So, where are Boro at now, and have we had a good or bad start to the season? Well, currently we sit 9th in the Championship League table. After 9 games, we've had 4 wins, 2 draws, and 3 defeats, scoring 10 goals, which is just over a goal a game, but conceding only 7, which is up there with one of the best defences in the Championship. However, what you could say is Boro have had so many games this season, so many opportunities where we have dropped massive points. And when you actually look at the Opta numbers in terms of who's had the easiest starts, Boro are right up there in terms of what you could theoretically say is one of the easiest starts in terms of the games that we've had thus far. So it's safe to say 9th, despite it still being, and I've heard Boro fans say it's much better than last season, and I get that, but last season's gone. It's a different story, different squad. I do think it's safe to say that we've had a slightly underwhelming start to the season, and that's saying something, given the fact that just over a week ago against Watford, when we were winning that game with 20 minutes to go, we were actually sat in 5th, only 2 points off the top of the league. So saying that we've had an underwhelming start, yet we could have been right up there within touching distance of the top of the league, just shows how quickly things can change, and the fine margins, and how things can skew, and the perception can change really quickly from one result to another. But of course, Boro didn't win that game. We somehow found a way to lose it, which leaves us 5 points off the top of the league. But them 5 points could quite easily be on the table in Boro's back pocket, and we quite easily could be at the top of the Championship. Now, I know it's easy to say that. A lot of teams probably will say that. We could have had more here, we could have had more there, and as we all know, things naturally sort of even themselves out over the season, so it's a pretty thin argument to say that we could have had this, we should have had this, because all teams could make that argument. But I do believe there is quite a lot of truth in the fact that Boro should definitely be a lot more better off, and we are performing a hell of a lot better than where we are and what the points tally and what the table currently shows. But it's all good saying that we should have this and we deserve to have that, and if this had have happened, and if we had got this, and if we'd have hung on here, and this mistake hadn't happened, whatever, it's all good saying that, but football is a results business. And you could argue after a few games, yeah, it's easy to say you've been a bit unlucky here, you know, things will turn, things will even out, but we are now at pretty much that 10-game mark, and that's why I thought it's now a good time to really make a judgment on where Boro are at. Now, before we look into the block of games and the fixtures and the results we've had, I'm going to quickly get through some numbers. Now, the numbers paint a pretty picture for Boro, and that, as Michael Carrick continues to say, we are doing a hell of a lot of things right. So it does show that we are one of the best defences in the Championship. We are 5th in terms of goals conceded, behind only Sheffield United, Burnley, West Brom and Swansea. So that's a good sign. In terms of clean sheets, we're 7th. So we're right up there, and Boro aren't a team I would associate under Carrick as a team that have had many clean sheets, but we're up there. We're one of the best sides when it comes to clean sheets. So once again, you think, okay, defensively, brilliant, that's great. In terms of XG conceded and the chances we've gave up, once again, we're one of the best teams in the league. Top 4, in fact. Only Sheffield United, Leeds and Burnley have limited the opposition to less big opportunities than what we have. And this is another big one. Saves per match. We actually are the best team in the league for saves per match. We limit the number of shots and the number of saves that Seny Dieng has to make more than any other team in the league. By far, in fact, we have the best saves per match ratio with around only 1 per game. So when we keep banging on about Seny Dieng not having much to do, it's backed up here because he literally does not have anything to do. Yet, we still find ourselves somehow on the receiving end of some really poor results. Another one that I think is quite impressive is our XG going forwards. As we've seen, numbers going back, pretty good. XG going forward, we're the best in the league once again. I know a lot of people don't believe in XG, and that's absolutely fair enough, but Boro create by far the best chances per game in the league. If you want to go even deeper into touches in the opposition's box, which I don't really think is a relevant stat at all, we're up there once again. The bottom line is, Boro are a very good defensive team. Boro are a very good attacking team. However, it's the fine margins, it's the moments which are really, really costing us, because despite limiting Seny Dieng to only 1 save per game on average, we're conceding almost 1 goal for every 2 shots that are going on to our goal, which is not good enough. And maybe that's on Seny Dieng, maybe that's on the opposition being just incredibly, ridiculously clinical. I don't know. But it feels like right now, most of the chances that are getting shot at Boro's goal are finding their way in. And you look at how much we're creating XG-wise, we are underperforming it massively, because despite creating by far the most chances per game in the league, we are 16th for goals scored currently, with around just over 1 goal a game. And of course, a huge amount of them have come from penalties, corners, own goals. The number of open play goals we've scored in the league are quite concerning. So what can you take from that? I think that paints a very positive picture. And I know a lot of people will say it doesn't matter about stats and numbers, it's all about results. And I completely get that. But normally, across a season, these things even themselves out. So if Boro keep doing what they're doing, I'm still confident that things will turn and we will start to see the goals converted and we will start to see the results. And I also understand completely that we've been saying this for weeks on end now, and it feels like things aren't really changing. And I get that too. And that's why when I get onto the fixtures in a minute, I feel like now it's the time for talk is over. The time for saying that this should happen, this will happen, we hope this will happen, it's over after the next block of fixtures. The next block of games, I think, are massive, and it's where we will see the real side of Boro and where we truly are at as a team. And we have to start seeing all these great numbers, and there's no denying they're great numbers. We have to start seeing them converted into goals, into points. We have to start seeing Boro keeping the ball at the back of the net, which we rightfully should be doing, and yet we still find ourselves conceding, and all these brilliant chances that we are creating have to start going in. So yeah, I'm still confident things will turn. It's a long season, but we are now starting to really get into the meat and bones of the Championship, and we've got to start seeing Boro getting their rewards. But also, it's not just about us getting our rewards, it's us making this happen, making all the good things we're doing actually convert into goals and therefore into points. So looking at the Boro's start to the season then, we're going to start with the initial block of games, and it was a very frustrating start to the season, as we well know. And I said in the early days of the season, and I still stand by this looking back, I wasn't bothered about the league table, I was bothered about points per game. And as long as Boro were somewhere in and around 2 points per game, I wasn't bothered where we were at. You know, some teams, yep, they started winning 5 out of 5, 6 out of 6, whatever. They will regress to the mean. And yet there were teams at the bottom who started really poorly, who were of course going to naturally improve. So league table, it's absolutely relevant. It's all about points per game. And in the initial block of games, Boro played Swansea, Derby, Portsmouth and Cardiff in the opening block of Championship games, beating Swansea 1-0, losing to Derby 1-0, drawing to Portsmouth and winning against Cardiff. This, of course, was a total of 7 points in the opening 4 league games, which was just under 2 points per game, and I was happy with that turnaround. However, it is more than blatant to see, and everyone knows that Boro really should have won all 4 games. You know, the Swansea game on the opening day of the season was a tough one that we edged, and you think having won the first, game of the season for the first time in a decade, it would mean that maybe our luck was changing, having been slow starters for the majority of our time in recent memory. However, Boro did what we always do. We backed that up with some typical Boro results, losing to Derby, drawing to Pompey, 2 games we should be winning regardless. They're newly promoted sides. The Derby one's the worst, of course, after that Isaiah Jones howler of a mistake. How we didn't get at least a goal back in that game still is quite miraculous, but once again, all down to our own individual errors, and the Pompey game was exactly the same. You can't be scoring 2 goals at home to a newly promoted side and not coming away on the winning side of it, and that was of course down to us starting really poorly and conceding early, and then Clark and De Jong smashing in to each other and finding a way to give Boro an uphill climb with, of course, us falling behind and then banging on the Pompey door, finally getting an equaliser with a penalty late on courtesy of Tommy Conway. So 9 points from 9 it should have been, and thankfully we did get past Cardiff, which was actually probably one of the weaker performances, but we got the win and that's all that matters. So you think, first block you go okay, a couple of results that should have gone our way, they didn't, but we still picked up 7 points, which is a healthy amount, I would say. However, we now look to the last block of games between the 2 international breaks, and I didn't do a video on this. I was going to prior to this block of games, but I thought Boro needed between 9 and 11 points from this block of games, because it would have took us to somewhere between 16 to 18 points, and for me that's where Boro needed to be. 16 to 18 points after 9 games, you're still hovering in and around that 2 points per game mark. I thought and I expected us to beat Preston, beat Stoke and get something from Watford or West Brom. But in typical Boro fashion, the games I expected us to win, we didn't. And the games I thought we'd lose, well, we kind of didn't. We, of course, continued to drop really, really poor points at home to Preston. Just when you thought after the international break we could kick on, we found a way to not win there with some of the similar tropes we've seen all season. Dominance, possession, not converting it into points, once again conceding quite a poor goal. The Sunderland defeat was a really low one. I didn't expect us to win at the Stadium of Light at all, but the performance was a really, really diabolical one. But it's not a result you can get too upset over. Sunderland were, of course, flying at the time. You think we're back on track after the Stoke and West Brom wins. The West Brom one in particular was absolutely outstanding. But the big one, and I know it's easy to say in, short-term reactionary, sort of recency bias, that was a huge, pivotal turning point, really, at the end of this block of games, because Boro could have come away with 9 points in a week. We could have came away, as I say at the start of the video, we could have been in the top 5, 2 points off the top of the league, and suddenly we're looking at a completely different outlook on how this season has started, and we could have had 17 points from 9, which is, again, just under 2 points a game, and I would have been delighted with that. But our 20-minute capitulation at Vicarage Road just sums up Boro as a team right now. Whenever we have something good in the palm of our hands, we find a way of ripping it up and somehow ruining it, and we come away with absolutely nothing, which, yeah, it does put a sour taste in your mouth, but you still look back at this run of games and think, okay, I wasn't expecting us to win at West Brom, I wasn't expecting us to win at Sunderland. The 2 outliers are probably either end of that block, losing to Watford and drawing to Preston. So I would say coming out of that block, we are just below where I think we should be, but not a million miles away. So despite the data saying this, that and the other, despite there being, especially in the first block, so many games we should and could have won, I still feel like we were this close to being exactly where we probably should be, but the Watford defeat kind of ruined it. So I'd say we're slightly below par where we should be at this moment in time. But this block coming up is absolutely massive because, as I said at the start, Opta says, and I agree, we've had a very generous start to the season. We should be a lot higher. We should have a lot more points, but we don't. Now the fixture list really starts to get difficult. We have 6 games between now and the next international break, and 4 of them are at home, which I think is huge. And we've seen it in the past. Borough's home form has let us down massively, especially last season, especially against sides who are going to come and sit, behind the ball and are teams towards the bottom end of the league. What I will say is the 4 home games we've got here should be all teams that won't do that. I think Bristol City might be the most likely, but they're all very, very difficult home games. And Bristol City's the first one. That's going to be difficult. They always come to Riverside and play well and get something from us. Sheffield United, you could say, at the moment, are the best team in the Championship, especially defensively. That is going to be ridiculously tough on Wednesday. We then go to Norwich, who a few weeks ago you might have felt was a good place to go, but they are finding their feet under Hostorup and are one of the most informed teams in the league. Then we have Coventry, and I don't care what people say about their start to the season, they're a team who have always had one over Boro. Robbins always gets one over Carrick, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did so again. And if Coventry were finally up and running by this point in the season. QPR away, they're not doing too well, but a very, very tough place to go before finishing at home to Luton, who, despite their horrendous start to the season, again, you'd expect them surely to have picked up by then and to be a much tougher prospect than what they look currently. So, this block of 6 games is so tough. And Boro are kind of playing catch-up at the minute. It maybe wouldn't look as tough of a prospect if we were right up there and we picked up all the points we should have done. Everyone will drop points and lose games they shouldn't here and there, but as I say, I think Boro are slightly behind where they should be at this moment in time. So these are big games, and we're now past the point of saying we're unlucky here. It's okay, it's only this many games, things will, level out eventually. By the end of this block, we will have played 15 games, and we simply have to be in the mix by the end of it, and I'm hoping in typical Boro fashion we will do what we normally do and turn up against the best teams, and that might give us the confidence to really start kicking on now, because we could be looking at a Boro side that are right up there, having beaten some of the best teams, proving we are in the mix and we're deservedly one of the best teams in the league and should be in the conversation for promotion. Or we might come out of this block of games and it might prove that we are really, really far off it. We get beaten by some of the best teams, and then big points we dropped at the start of the season will start to look really, really costly. So, I did say, out of the last 5 games, we should have picked up between 9 and 11 points. I still stand by us needing to be in and around that 2 points per game mark, which means I think by this period, by the end of this block, after 15 games, I'd like to see Boro somewhere upwards of around 27, 28 points. I think asking to be up at 30 points is too much. That would require us to pick up 16 points from these 6 games, which I do think is a ridiculous ask. I'd like to see Boro 25 to 28 points, I would say, which means we have to pick up, you'd like to think, 11 to 14 points maybe, in and around that, which means we're going to have to win 3, 4 of these games, maybe draw 1 or 2. We can't lose too many of them. So it's a big ask when you look at the fixtures we have. So I'm going to throw a couple of predictions out there, and I'm going to say I think we'll beat Bristol City. We should beat Bristol City, and I also think we'll win away at QPR, and we'll beat Luton at home. There's 9 points. I'm not so sure we'll beat Sheffield United. I think a point in that game would be good, so that would give us 10 points. And then Norwich and Coventry are the 2 where I am a little bit on the fence. We're going to lose a game in this spell, and I feel like it probably will be at Carrow Road, so there's maybe 10 points from 5. And the 6th game is Coventry, and that's the one I really really can't pick from, and that's where we might have to win, because that would take us to around 13 points, which, as I say, still really isn't enough from this block of games to get us exactly where we need to be. And again, that just shows and highlights how tough of a run this really, really is. So I'm gonna back us to hopefully beat Coventry, but I really, really am far from, expecting that to happen. So yeah, these are a big crop of 6 games, and we need to pull out some pretty big results in quite a few of them to get back on track as to where we are. So yeah, a huge task, a huge tough run, and I think whereas we've underperformed so far, we might have to slightly overperform to get right back in the mix, and that's just because, and that's all down to the stupid points we've dropped so far at the start of the season, when arguably the fixture list was a lot more generous. So, to finish off, big run coming up. We've got to pick up some really, really big wins from it, and I think we need to pick up, as I say, 11 to 13, 14 points from the next 6 to stay right in the mix, and it's going to be very, very difficult. So let me know your thoughts on Boro's start to the season thus far after 9 games. I'm not going to be too reactionary one way or the other, but I will say we've slightly underperformed. So it's not a good start, it's not a bad start, but I would say it's a slightly underwhelming one, and we certainly need to start clicking. The goals certainly need to start going in, because everything we're doing is good. Everything is doing. I would be much more worried if we were conceding chances left, right and centre and not creating anything at all. But surely now is the time where we have to start converting goals. We have to start putting teams away. We have to be more ruthless, and we hopefully will start getting more clean sheets that our defence, I feel, deserves. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, how you would grade Boro's start to the season, where it is in terms of good, bad, underwhelming, or otherwise, and also leave me your predictions in the comment section below on how many points you think we need from the next 6 and how many points you think we will get from the next 6 with your predicted results for the next 6 games. But until the next one, guys, thank you so much for watching. It's great to be back. Well, it isn't really. I'm going to be brutally honest. I'd much rather be in Egypt right now. But yeah, Boro, 2 home games coming up over the next few days. I will be back to review whatever the hell happens at home to Bristol City before a quick turnaround before the Sheffield United game is upon us. Fixtures and games are going to be thick and fast over the next few weeks, so subscribe for all that good stuff. And until the next time, guys, do like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for much more, hit the bell so you never miss when an episode drops. And until next time, do take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.